Hello everyone, this is Pastor Joe of Sea Life Ministries, and today we are going to continue in our study in the book of Philippians. And last time we talked about our citizenship in heaven, and today we're going to be starting in chapter 4, verse 1, and we're going to talk about be united, joyful, and in prayer. So, chapter 4, verse 1, Therefore, my beloved and longed for brethren, my joy and crown, so stand fast in the Lord, beloved. I implore Euodia and I implore Syntyche to be of the same mind in the Lord. And I urge you also, true companion, help these women who labored with me in the gospel, with Clement also, and the rest of my fellow workers whose names are in the book of life. I like the way he starts off where he says, my beloved and longed for, where Paul reveals his deep affection for the Philippian believers, and really the Greek term for longed for refers to the deep pain of separation from loved ones. And then he talks about my joy and crown. Paul did not derive his joy from circumstances, but from his fellow believers in Philippi. And the Greek term for crown refers to the laurel wreath received by an athlete for winning a contest. And back in the Roman times, what we would think of as the Olympics, the person who wins gets the laurel wreath of where it looks like a branch taken and woven into a crown put on the winner's head. And so I just wanted to kind of paint a little bit of a greener picture, if you will, of what the crown looks like back then. And then when he talks about stand fast, the Greek word was often used to describe a soldier standing at his post, and here it was a military command. And then in verse 2, when he uses the word implore, that is really to urge or to appeal. And then he mentions two people's names, Euodia and Syntyche. These two women were prominent church members who may have been among the women meeting for prayer when Paul first preached the gospel in Philippi. Apparently, they were leading two opposing factions in the church, most likely over personal conflict, which, unfortunately, things like that still happen today, but that's because we are human and stuff like that happens. And referring to those two women, my notes also show in Acts chapter 16, verse 13, it says, And on the Sabbath day we went out of the city to the riverside, where prayer was customarily made, and we sat down and spoke to the women who met there. And Euodia and Syntyche were known to be two of the women who were meeting there and offering up prayer. And then when Paul speaks of the same mind, the possible translation is harmony. Spiritual stability depends on mutual love, harmony, and peace between believers. But let's drop down to verse 3, because I really like the word companion. The Greek word pictures two oxen in a yoke pulling the same load, a companion in a partner or an equal in a specific endeavor. In this case, a spiritual one. So I always enjoy it when I'm reading and or studying, the Bible, and I love, when it paints clear word pictures for me. It's easier to not only understand it, but to remember it. And then he says, with Clement also, I've done a little research, and really there isn't anything known of Clement. But you may recognize the phrase, the book of life, of whose names are written in the book of life. In eternity past, God registered all the names of his elect in the book, which identifies these inheritors of eternal life. Now, in my notes, there are a few verses we can look at about the book of life, and I really don't want to just skim over it, so let's read those now. The first one is Revelation chapter 3 in verse 5. He who overcomes shall be clothed in white garments, and I will not blot out his name from the book of life, but I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. And the next one is Revelation 17 verse 8. The beast that you saw, and is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition, and those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. And the last one I wanted to draw your attention to is Revelation 20, verse 12. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works by the things which were written in the books. And yes, it did say, and the books, plural, were opened, and another book was opened. And those other books are thought to be books that record every thought, word, and deed of sinful man, but that'll be for another study on another day. And so to end, let's read verse 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. And if we go back to Philippians chapter 3, verse 1, it says something similar. Finally, my brethren, rejoice in the Lord. For me to write the same things to you is not tedious, but for you it is safe. And again, when he's talking about a sphere unrelated to the circumstances of life, but related to an unassailable, unchanging relationship to the sovereign Lord. And I've heard on some sermons, and I like it, it's the pastor says that our happiness is and can be based upon circumstances, but our joy should always be consistent because, Jesus himself said that he came that we may have joy and have it more abundantly. But I think that will conclude for today. I hope you are enjoying these studies as much as I am. Until next time, have a great day and Lord bless you.